Dwayne Keaton. And our question is...
What does freedom in Christ mean to me? What does it mean to be free in Christ? A good answer, for me anyway, is, well, first of all, what's for freedom that he said it's free. Galatians 5:1. So one of the main purposes, I believe, that he came is to set us free, meaning to be free. Free to worship, free to love, free to believe in him. Freedom in Christ comes from acknowledging, believing, accepting the truth and grace of God. Understanding that the cross of Christ has liberated us from the curse of the law, as Chuck Swindoll said. Liberated us from Satan and his demons, from an accusing conscience, from all of the lists that might be made that we would have to live by. From anything from the size of your heel that you would wear to church, to have to get baptized in order to be saved, to have to take communion a certain time, or have to do this or that, have to have a Bible study every day, have to say a prayer every day, have to even ask for forgiveness after sinning. Freedom in Christ means liberty. It means allowing the grace of God to live through you. And there's so much more to say, but that's pretty much a good summary. You got anything?
Well, I think in my own personal walk, I lived a lot of my life in bondage to feeling like I had a certain role that I had to play. There was a certain look of what a Christian needed to look like, and so for me it created a roller coaster. There was the ups and the downs and the dips and the valleys, and there wasn't really the steadiness of Christ, because when you look at him, he is sturdy and he is steady, and my walk didn't reflect that. So and I learned about all the in him passages that Paul talks about. For example, my favorite is, he took him who knew no sin to become sin so that we could become the righteousness of God in him. And so to think that we are as righteous as we ever need to be, not because of what we do, but because of who God made us. And God doing it being the key factor. So when I learned that, it was just freeing for me, because I no longer had to second guess myself. I didn't have to, if I had an action in my head, I didn't have to stop and think, wait a minute, is that what a good Christian would do? Because with my relationship with the Lord, it was more of a, yeah, that's Christ living his life through me. And so I have the freedom to act upon it and not doubt myself or second guess it. So it's a beautiful relationship when you carry it over into what it means in body life, because if I know that I am free in Christ, then I know that you are free in Christ. And so I don't have to regard you according to your flesh, because you are in him, and I can trust that if you are in him, then what you are doing is good, and I don't have to judge you. So it's really good stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. That's one of the beautiful points, is this whole, we do no longer regard each other according to the flesh. In any kind of relationship, that's one thing to keep in mind, to remember that Christ who lives in us, we do not regard each other according to the flesh, rather regard each other according to how God views us. And as hard and difficult as that is, it is the truth, though. Whether we walk in it or not doesn't change the fact that it's the truth. And it is a great goal, I guess, to try to do that every day, and to allow, pray to God, give us the grace to do that with each other. And more freedom in Christ ideas, the freedom in worship, freedom in creativity. As an artist, it allows for me a great deal of just enjoyment, wonderful enjoyment of being able to create, not feeling like I'm locked into a certain standard. As an artist, I have a inner repulsion toward things that are trendy or popular, or that everybody else says this is how it must be done. So as you know, in the world of creativity, I absolutely love having freedom in Christ, because it allows for a great liberty in what can be made, what can be created, and the life that can be lived.
Yeah, and for praise, freedom in Christ would be that there is no set, this is what praise looks like. To some people, praise is going to be sitting there with their arms crossed, just enjoying the worship. And then for others, it's going to be running up and down the aisleways, being free in Christ. But the key to it is that, it's the Lord that told you to do it. And not just some worship book out there that said this is what praise looks like, or what some worship leader says, stand up right now, so you stand up. So it's just being free to live the life that the Lord is living through you, which is really kind of hard to wrap your brain around, but if you seek the Lord, He's going to be faithful to reveal Himself to you.
Does being free in Christ affect the quality of your creativity or the quality of your praise? Do you find that your hearts are more affectionate toward Him because of that?
Oh, absolutely. Because you don't have to, you're not living in second guessing yourself or doubting yourself. And there's a purity in your relationship with the Lord when you know that it is simple. There's a simplicity in freedom that is just absolutely remarkable in our walk with Him.
And a very purity. There's a pureness to it, as well as the enjoyment. That there's no secondary underlining motive behind it. It's just a pure enjoyment of Christ. That is your sole purpose for doing this. There's no other reason. You're not showing off to anybody. You're not trying to be anybody's expectation. You're not trying to do something that somebody else told you to do or somebody else is expecting you to do. You are solely and exclusively enjoying Christ, and that's the only motive that you have. And that is extremely liberating, and there's no other experience that's like that. None. I wish that it could be experienced more often. That's...
Well, one of the best analogies I've ever heard to explain it would be to put it in an art history perspective. If you want to relive the great artist, Michelangelo, for example, and you want to be able to mimic his technique and the beauty of how he paints, his brush strokes, and just the whatever, you're the art history person. There's a couple different ways you can do that. You can study and try to do it on yourself, but you're never going to be able to do it just like Michelangelo did. But if you were to say, okay, and just take this for what it is, because it's kind of a weird analogy, but hey, Michelangelo, come live inside me, and why don't you paint through me? And so then you would be able to paint just like Michelangelo did. So, every Christian who accepts the Lord wants to live as Christ lived. That is their desire, because that's the heart God puts in them. But if we just try to do it in our own strength, or try to read a book about it on Christian disciplines and say, well, this is what Jesus did, so this is what I'm going to do, it's not really going to, we can study what Jesus did and WWJD and all that stuff, but until we say, hey, Jesus, come, live your life through me, paint through me, praise through me, worship through me, love through me, give through me, that is the picture of freedom. It's just every day taking up your cross and following Him, but not in the aspect of physically doing anything. It's more of a Sabbath rest, and that you just sit there and you give up in your own strength and say, Jesus, live through me today. Carry your cross through me today. Love my neighbor through me today. Love my husband through me today. Love that slow driver in front of me today.